All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, I have been biting my tongue, guys. Trying not to say it, and I promise I won't dwell on it too often. But damn it, watching Joe Biden get inaugurated while Bernie sat by in his mittens, I just gotta at least say it once, we could have had Bernie. Instead of pleading for incrementalist scraps and watching Neera Tanden ascend to a key position with both budgetary and ethical oversight somehow, we could have had a guy who has literally been preparing for the crises we are facing right now his entire life. You know that the fate of the $2,000 is going to be the story of the entire Biden presidency. Just as we went from 2,000 to 1,400 and from immediately to sometime in the next 3 months, at every instance in this presidency, something woefully inadequate will be promised, only to see this bare minimum delayed and diminished. Not only are we meant to meekly accept this, we're supposed to be delighted by it, in ecstasy over the fact that Kamala Harris, Mayor Pete, and the other ambitious climbers of the Democratic establishment are achieving their dreams. Now, don't get me wrong, plenty in the Democratic establishment really are that happy. Jim Clyburn, for one, couldn't resist crowing on Inauguration Day about how George W. Bush told him he was a savior for preventing Bernie from winning the Democratic nomination.
Several people said to me today, including George W. Bush, George Bush said to me today, he said, you're the savior. Because if you had not nominated Joe Biden, we would not be having this transfer of power today. And he said to me, Joe Biden was the only one who could have defeated the incumbent president.
So let's be super clear about what Jim Clyburn and the rest saved us from. We don't have to guess. We know precisely because Senator Sanders in a CNN op-ed laid out exactly what he would do through budget reconciliation if it was up to him to set the agenda. So here's a partial list. Here's what Clyburn, Obama, Amy, Pete, Elizabeth Warren, and all the rest saved us from. Take a good look. Commit it to memory. You've got $2,000 checks, $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all, double the community health centers, lower drug prices, eliminating the tax on emergency unemployment benefits, paid family leave, universal child care, massive infrastructure investments, combating climate change, reducing inequality by taxing the rich, saving USPS, and add to that, eliminating student debt. Healthcare, jobs, childcare, debt cancellation. These are the things that George W. Bush is applauding Jim Clyburn for saving us from. Great work, team. Congratulations. Now, it has been tremendously telling what has happened even in these first few days of the Biden administration. It's been really interesting what they've had ready to go and what they've been really caught off guard on. They were ready on day one with all the executive orders to roll back the Trump executive orders, ending the Muslim ban, ending the border wall, canceling Keystone, getting back in the Paris Climate Accords. These are all really good things, but none actually treads any new ground. It's all just reset the clock to 2015 type of actions. They were also ready with a hopeless, symbolic immigration plan, which they expect to satisfy some of their allies, but they know damn well it's not going to garner the 60 votes to actually become law. I support it, certainly, but it's hardly worth debating the details of something so obviously doomed to failure. So in the area where they knew they were going to have power, the executive branch, they were ready with marginal incrementalism that threatens no one's power who gives to their campaigns. And they were ready with some symbolic softs to the base that they expressly designed to crash into the rocks of the Senate Republicans. What they were not ready with was a legislative agenda for actual governance. Politico Playbook reported last week that Democrats were caught flat-footed by winning the Senate races in Georgia, and that they are at a complete and total loss as to what to do in the realm of passing bills and budgets to actually directly address the multiple crises that we are currently facing. Crises which have been exacerbated by COVID, but which were definitely here in catastrophic form before COVID reared its ugly head. We are a nation that is both literally and figuratively sick. Sick from a corrupt and unequal healthcare system, sick from a corrupt and unequal economy, and organized around the soulless and destructive values of profits and greed. That same economy and those same values are destroying our country and destroying the planet. And absolutely everyone should take note that on the issues at the core of these crises, Democrats are like the dog that caught the car. They don't know how to approach it or what they really want to do. And I know exactly what they actually are doing right now to try to figure it out. This was a real tell here. So the team over at the Daily Poster, they actually caught that the Biden people lifted their COVID relief healthcare plan directly from the health insurance industry's wish list. Like, they literally just took whatever the industry suggested and stuck it into their own COVID healthcare plan. Now, if you think this approach to governance applies only to the health insurance industry, of course, you're completely wrong. In the absence of a mission or a vision, the influence peddlers around Washington, they are more than happy to fill in the blanks. Lockheed will send you their defense industry bailout provisions already pre-written, ready to go. K Street lobbyists will send you language on how to include them in the CARES Act. A million other interests will tell you precisely how to structure your bills and your budgets so that they can get their cut. DC is actually completely dependent on these people. So if you're wondering why Democrats are saying it will likely take until March to have the next emergency relief package together for an emergency that has been going on for literally a year now, this is why. They've got to gather up all this stuff, wrap it together, make sure all the right interests have their chance to get custom language into the bill. It should not escape your notice that the only person who really seems ready for this moment is Bernie. He's in a powerful position now as chair of the Senate Budget Committee. He knows exactly what's needed and how to achieve it. Why? Because it's really not that hard to figure out what needs to be done. His agenda is far from radical. I bet you'd easily get better than 60% support on every single item on the list that I listed before. What's hard, apparently, is rejecting an ideology that says we should apply the meagerest of Band-Aids to a gaping wound, rejecting the corporate interests who brought you to the dance, and rejecting the commitment to scarcity that keeps our American lords and ladies in charge and keeps everyone else desperate and struggling. This is the second time in recent history that a Democratic president has come into office in the midst of a crisis with total Democratic control. The last time ended with Donald Trump ascending to the presidency. This time, I pray something was learned in the interim. But so far, I just can't stop thinking about what could have been. And Sagar, if it's not a hopeful radar, I grant you. But there is one piece of it that is a little optimistic, which is Joe Biden doesn't really have an ideology. And so when you have someone in a position of power like Bernie is, who actually knows what he wants, that is actually a tremendous strategic advantage because he's been really playing his hand, I think, very smartly, Bernie has. From the beginning of this administration, he came out right away setting the terms of the debate, and yeah, it's going to get negotiated back from where he is. But I think he himself, just like he did in December, actually putting checks on the table, he is helping to define the terms of what this relief bill actually could end up being.
Totally. Like I've said, I've always respected Bernie because he's one of the few people who actually does work in the Senate and knows how to attach stuff in amendments, knows how the legislative process works, actually does all of that. The real question is, why is he the only person who had a plan ready to go on day one? No, like actually, though.
Literally.
Why not the incoming administration that's about to run the U.S. government?
Great question.
Look, it's been a week. It's been almost a week now. So, Senate floor time is a very precious thing. I keep saying that because it's one of these things that not many people understand. But in order to vote, you need 30 hours of debate, unlimited amounts of debate, unless there's a bunch of unanimous consent rules, etc. That's a long time in D.C. People don't get it. Every week that you wait on budget reconciliation could mean 2 weeks in the future, 3 weeks. And now you have all of this maneuvering. And as you said, now you put the immigration proposal, thing is DOA completely, going nowhere. Now they're going to have an impeachment trial. Who knows how long that's going to take? You could support impeachment. That's fine. But do we honestly have faith that they would use that time in order to make sure there was a vote ready to go whenever the trial is over? I don't think that.
Well, and here's the thing.
I don't see anything.
We now know impeachment is not going to start until, I think, February 9th?
Yeah, maybe.
So they have a couple of weeks.
So do something then.
Do something if you were ready to do something, if you actually wanted to do something. And I don't think it should be lost that, look, I actually think the plan that Biden put out, the $1.9 trillion, I've got some qualms with it, in particular scaling the $2,000 back to $1,400 for no apparent reason.
It's a good
plan. Like there's child tax credit, like there's things in it to really get behind and support. But do you hear him out there really making the case?
I don't
really
hear
putting the screws to people like Joe Manchin? No. I mean, that's who should be feeling the pressure right now, because he's caught between his sort of corporatist ideology and donor base and what his constituents in West Virginia want and need. So you got to expose that gap. You got to put pressure on him. But there have been no red lines drawn. there's been a lot more like, let me reach down and let me negotiate myself down. It really seems to be right now a replay of the approach the Obama administration took. Now, I will say that the plan to start with is bolder than what Obama started with during the last financial crisis. But you can see the way that this is going to go. They promise something, they scale it back, they wring their hands out. Oh gosh, guys, it's the best we could do. These moderates, these Republicans, they're too squeamish about the price tag, so we did the best that we possibly could. No, you're not doing the best that you can. You need to put pressure on. You need to make people pay if they don't give the American people the help that they need and deserve right now.
No, you're 100% right. Look, everything he's doing is symbolic, as you said, with those executive orders. Today he's signing a Buy American executive order. Okay, that's great. Making it so the federal government has to buy American goods. I'm 100% supportive. Why Trump never did it? That's another conversation. But that's not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a real agenda.
Right.
You didn't get elected to sign pieces of paper controlling, U.S. government buying power. That's nothing. That's like 1% of our GDP or whatever.
Well, and let me say, even on those things, because there's that, which again I support.
Yeah, support it, but
and
still,
there's also one that is supposed to get federal contractors to pay their workers $15 an hour. The way these things are worded is very...
There's always exemptions.
It's very weaselly.
Right.
And the way it's described is like, this will start the process of getting federal government contractors to pay $15 an hour. This will lessen the number of loopholes and exemptions in Buy American. So even these things are sort of... They're watered down. You can tell they heard from the lobbyists that, this is a real problem for us. This is going to be a real issue. So even things that, look, are good moves in the right direction always end up being sort of scaled back, aren't quite what was promised to start with, and they just throw up their hands and go, guys, this was the best we could do.
That's exactly right.
All right, more Rising for you right after this.